Jump off that exhausting hamster wheel and into balanced living with Dr. Marissa.
Promise you joy in the mystery.
Dr. Marissa, also known as the Asian Oprah. Her mission, to be a beneficial presence on the planet. Her purpose, to be your personal advocate to live, laugh, love, learn. Her life motto, don't die wondering. Take back your life with Dr. Marissa Pei.
And welcome. You're tuned into Take My Advice. We're not using it. Get Balance with Dr. Marissa, the morning show here on CNBC News, NBC News, and NBC Sports Radio Station KCAA, home of the Asian Oprah, AM 1050, FM 106.5, and streaming everywhere. iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, iTunes, TuneIn, Audible, Amazon Music, Tiki Live, Rumble, Podchaser, Spreaker, and more. And this is a show about hope and happiness, so there's no gossip, no scandal, and no K-words, no Kanye talk at all, now or formerly. Instead, I want you to focus on your own reality show and how you can be happy 88% of the time. So I have topics and guests to that end. If you missed any of my 1,211 shows, you can find them on my free subscribe YouTube channel. If you're driving right now, don't try to chat. But those of you who know this show, you feel free to stream live. We are live right now. And especially since I have a very interesting guest this morning, as you can see, I'm not alone, and I'm so delighted to have him. He is, again, one of my favorite publicists' offerings. He is Geoffrey Mark, a walking encyclopedia of show business history. Born in Brooklyn, New York, he's a jazz singer, comedian, radio show personality, show business historian, actor, producer, and best-selling author of The Lucy book. You'll remember when I had Lucy Arnaz, I Love Lucy's Daughter. Ethel Merman, and I'm super excited to talk about her because I don't know much about her. The Biggest Star on Broadway, and two books on one of my favorite musicians, Ella Fitzgerald. He's also the mighty proud recipient of an Emmy Award as well as a Grammy Award nomination. He's marking his 50th anniversary in show business and started professionally when he was only 15, co-starring in Lil Abner at the Colony 7 Dinner Theater outside of Washington, D.C. Please welcome to my studio, Geoffrey Mark.
Well, with an introduction like that, I'd better be good.
Absolutely. And it's about time I had you on here. I've gotten to see you on a couple of Harlan's red carpets. And Harlan said that you are by far one of the most requested guests. And I'm like, okay, then have him on for sure. So let's make that time here now. Also, I did forget to tell you it will interrupt the live stream if your phone goes off. So just in case, I just remind everybody. And while you're doing that, y'all know I start every show with breakfast with my guest or co-host. And Jeffrey's like, I'm going to get food this morning. I'm going to get a coffee. Actually, it's taking a bite of my gratitude sandwich.
There you go.
Top of the bun is things that I'm grateful for. Oh, good. Here's mine. Ready? Blink. Yeah, you got to go opposite. There we go. Awesome.
And yes, I choose my cups to match my outfits.
Yes, it's glorious. It looks fancy. Like, it's a part of a set, right? It's beautiful. What is it? I'm not into teacups, but I'm sure there's what is it? Dalton? Is it a Dalton?
I'm not sure. I got this in a lovely West Hollywood place that imports things from Europe. And I love I'm not much of a snob in anything, but I love my coffee from a China cup. So I have a collection of China cups, and that's one of them.
Well, that's beautiful.
Coffee
All right.
is better in a China cup.
Anything China's good.
I was giving you the lead in. I was waiting for you.
Thank you, Geoffrey. Thanks. I knew we were going to have fun because I love to laugh, and it's my favorite sound on the planet. And we just got a finger for that. Somebody just gave us a finger. Not that one. This one.
Okay. Yeah.
So thank you for that. There we go. So you've already given 2 gratitudes. Those are all things that are outside of yourself. And we do 8 altogether. Feel free to put in the chat what you're grateful for. And then we go to the bottom of the bun because I like it on the bottom. Just kidding. Bottom of the bun because it's so important to push gratitude to the inside. A lot of us are aware now of the importance of mental health, but we also are reaching for things outside of ourselves to make us feel better. So this is a morning discipline, good life habit that I like to have. So you are more fortified with self-love, self-care, self-soothing, so that you're not looking for likes in all the wrong places, including social media. So that's what we're doing. You are grateful for your tea cup, coffee, morning. I'm grateful for Harlan and having you on, and for living in Southern California and having air conditioning. One more from you.
I wake up, the very first words in my head are thank you. Because if I start my day before I even get out of bed, if I start my day with gratitude, I find my days go better. And it may sound cliche. And if I stammer a little bit, I'm a night owl. I only get up this early for people, wonderful people like you. Otherwise, I'd be fast asleep right now. But if one spends one's energy on gratitude, somehow more good things come our way. And if we forget about the gratitude and wine, crickets. So I want to bring good happiness, joy. You said 82% of the time. Was that the figure you used?
88% of the time, because if you're 100% happy, you're dead. Because we need some contrast, right? If we don't know if we're happy, if we're not a little bit unhappy. And I say 88 because I know you thought I was Swedish, but I'm Chinese. And 8 is a homophone for good fortune. So double good fortune. I'm also a recovering perfectionist. So I have to be okay with not 100%. And 88 is a pretty good number. So
and I'll throw in another word.
Okay.
In case our friends who are watching and listening, like happiness, oh, that's too hard. How about being content? Start with that. Be content 88% of the time, and watch the quality of your life just zoom into the stratosphere.
Absolutely. And if you've just tuned in, you're wondering who's in studio this morning. His name is Geoffrey Mark. He is a veteran in Hollywood. I think that's my new tagline for you.
I'll take it.
He's worked with a lot of big names and gotten to know them intimately. We're very excited to have him, to find out. I really would love to know about Ethel Merman and Ella Fitzgerald. And if we have time, Lucy, I know a little bit more, but we're excited to have this. We're finishing up breakfast. We're going to the bottom of the bun. What we like about ourselves. I appreciate that I have that. We were in the green room talking, and I said that I have a dash of Mongolian, and so don't piss me off. And he said, well, Mongolian or not, we get that with you. So I'll appreciate my ability to, kind of be like nonsense when there's time for it and no nonsense when there is. How's that?
Well, all the ladies you mentioned, Lucille Ball, Ethel Merman, Ella Fitzgerald, all of them had that same thing about them. If one was going to work with, I'm not talking about in their personal lives, if one was going to work with them, if you brought your best game, if you worked hard, if your intention was to be the very best you could on that day, all three ladies would be your best friend and help you get along. But if you showed up and didn't know your lines, if you showed up and you were intoxicated, if you showed up and your lack of professionalism interfered with them being able to be their best, I would feel very, very sorry.
You get it.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. I'll take that. I'll take that. What do you like about yourself, Geoffrey?
I like my talent, which is God-given, or however any one of us believes. My talent, my intellect, my IQ is in the genius category. But I did nothing to earn that. That's, it's like being a redhead. That's how I was born. I can't take a bow because I have a red beard. That's just, genetics. I like my sense of humor. That's something I did develop. And I like making people happy. I'm happy that through the 50 years, my talent and my efforts seem to have made, I don't know how many millions of people happy and a little less fried from their day. And I'm liking how much charity work I've done through the years. And in fact, I'm looking up here on my wall. I have a special congressional recognition from the United States Congress for my charity work. And I like that about myself, that I give.
That's awesome. And that is it for breakfast with my guests this morning, taking a bite of my gratitude sandwich. I promise you that if you start your day in this way for the next 28 days, with or without me on the morning show, you will sandwich your day in the most positive way. Thanks for joining us for breakfast. All righty. We are ready for your expertise and experience and the stories and the I can't even imagine what it was like collecting information and interviewing and getting to know these stars who I'm rarely starstruck, because I believe, like you, Geoffrey, that everyone has a unique talent, gift, and ability. And Hollywood sort of glorifies, and I don't know why we think actors necessarily have more talent than a scientist or whatever, but that's just the way we are in Hollywood. But I love the fact that when we get to know people who are in the headlines, we find out that they're people, but they do have some extraordinary ways in which they have honed their craft that are really super interesting. So I don't know where you want to start, Geoffrey, but
pick a lady. Let's pick a person.
All right, perfect. Ethel Merman. I mean, I don't think there's many people who really know a lot about her.
Well, for those of you who are joining us, and I'm happy you're here with us, Ethel Merman was indeed the biggest star on Broadway in musical comedies. She did 15 hit Broadway musicals from 1930 to 1970, over a 40-year course of work on stage. She introduced more than 45 songs that became standards, like I Got Rhythm and I Get a Kick Out of You, and There's No Business Like Show Business, and Everything's Coming Up Roses, and
There's No Business Like Show Business is hers?
Oh, absolutely.
Wow.
And Annie Get Your Gun by Irving Berlin.
Wow.
And she led a very tempestuous personal life. She's a New Yorker. She was raised in Astoria. She called it Long Island. Today they call it Queens. Her parents were Scottish and German immigrants. She was an only child. And she maybe that's why I identify with her. She knew very early on exactly what she wanted and exactly where she was going. I've known since I was 2 that I was going into show business. I think she did also. And she had a unique way of performing music and also of being funny. And she was well educated by the people who came before her, the Al Jolsons and the Fanny Bryces, and the big stars then were vaudeville and Broadway people. And she saw and she absorbed what she saw. And then, kind of like me also, she just sort of put it into the food processor, mixed it up, and came out with an original product. Otherwise, you don't stay in show business for 50 years.
What was your first break?
Girl Crazy. Ethel was performing in vaudeville at the Brooklyn Paramount Theater, which was a stage presentation house. In those days, vaudeville was already dying. So a lot of the vaudeville theaters became presentation houses. They'd show a feature film 6 or 7 times a day, and there'd be a shortened vaudeville show in between the showings of the film. And she was the star of this particular show. Girl Crazy was written by George and Ira Gershwin and produced by a man named Vinton Friedley. And Ginger Rogers had already been signed as the star of the show. Ginger's mother, Layla, went out to the Brooklyn Paramount, saw Ethel, and knew they were having trouble casting this secondary part. She had the producer come see her, and then the producer took her to George and Ira. And as Ethel loved to tell the story, he played the 3 songs, which she eventually wound up singing in the show, because, as she said, fortunately, I got the part. But he turned to her and said, Miss Merman, if there's anything about these songs you don't like, I'd be most happy to change them. And that's like, George Gershwin would be willing to change a song for me. And one of the songs in the show, which wasn't her first time stopping the show, she did a song called Sam and Delilah. And yes, I know, folks, I hear you. What? We never heard of that. I know. But she stopped the show in the first half. About 90 seconds later, followed with I Got Rhythm. And
I Got Rhythm. That one?
That's the one. And worked out with George and the orchestra a way to sing it so that she sang the song all the way through, and then the song repeated, and she held out that I, I 3 times like that. Only much, much better than I just did it, because it's very early in the morning for me. I don't sing before 2:00 in the afternoon. And it stops the show again. She had repeated 4 times.
Wow.
And that just propelled her. Then one show after another, and movie shorts and more vaudeville. And by 1940, she'd already done something like 10 musicals in 10 years. Cole Porter, Irving Berlin, George Gershwin. It just kept building and building and building. And she became a superstar in show business who had not so happy personal life.
Yeah, let's talk about that one after we come back from a quick news and weather break. We do have Geoffrey Mark with us this morning, who has Uber experience and wonderful true stories. I don't like gossip and scandal, but this is true information about some classic, iconic Hollywood stars. Don't go away. This is Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get balanced with Dr. Marissa. The morning show will be back in peace and peace. 2 and 2.
Take back your life with Dr. Marissa Pei.
And welcome back. You're tuned in to Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get balanced with Dr. Marissa. The morning show here on KCAA, NBC News Radio, home to the Asian Oprah, #1 talk in the IE. Thank you very much. And a show that you're not going to hear anything here that you are hearing everywhere else on the news, because you can hear it there, but you cannot hear news that is not CNN. Constantly negative news, a weapon of mass distraction. If it bleeds, it leads. Instead, this is a show about hope and happiness, and I get to bring whoever I would like to help you enhance. And one of the things that delights me is learning new things about people that I admire or that are very talented in their craft. And so Geoffrey Mark is certainly a walking encyclopedia. That's such a good description of you, and just the wealth of knowledge, not just as a historian, but as an entertainer himself. So please welcome back to the studio, Geoffrey Mark. We were just talking.
Dr. Marissa, you'd be amazed how many people who know me well, for some reason, start calling me Gregory. I don't know why. I went back. Lucy Arnaz was performing out here in the desert, and we're friends. And I went backstage to spend some time with her, and we were talking. There were other people there, and she would, Gregory. And I looked at her like, Lucy, I've known you for 35 years.
Okay.
I don't know why. So I'm used to it.
Thank you for making me. You caught that little. So we were talking about Ethel Merman, and I did not know, and I love learning new things for the first time. I did not know that all of those musicals and all of those hits were affiliated with her. And you talked about the personal life. We were going to talk to, so let's balance it out.
In Ethel's life, it seemed like every time something wonderful happened, something awful happened. It's just one of the, I don't know if that's the price the universe wanted her to pay for her extreme talent and popularity and money.
I don't believe in punishment. So,
okay. Yeah. I said I didn't know. I don't know. But tempestuous. Her first big love affair was with a man who owned a nightclub in New York, who was married, and told her that he was no longer intimate with his wife. It was a marriage of convenience for the children. Mm-hmm. Sherman Billingsley, who owned the Stork Club. And Ethel believed him until she read the paper one morning that his wife was pregnant. Oops. Broke her heart. The man who was the father of her children ended up committing suicide.
Oh, goodness.
Her daughter, Ethel Jr., died in 1967 of an incautious overdose of alcohol and drugs. Ethel vehemently denied that it was a suicide attempt. The coroner said it was not suicide. It was just her daughter mixed up too much drugs with too much alcohol and, went into arrest. So that kind of thing has happened to her a lot through her. So in 1970, when she finished, she was the last Dolly in Hello, Dolly. And by the way, for her, they added 2 extra songs because she was Ethel Merman. After that, she said, I'm done. She said, I am going to do what I feel like doing. So she spent the rest of her life singing with philharmonics and symphony orchestras, her biggest hits, doing with Johnny Carson, Merv Griffin, all the talk shows, all the variety shows. And that satisfied her. Creativity, creative energy unused turns to depression. And she did not want that happening to her. So she worked as often as she felt like, and she worked literally till the week she had her stroke. She was still working.
Wow.
Still getting standing ovations everywhere she went.
How old was she?
When she passed, she was...
When she had her stroke?
74.
And then she passed?
About a year and a half later.
And she lived locally for us, right?
No, she lived in always in New
Oh,
York.
in New York.
There was one little piece of time. She married the president of Continental Airlines, Bob Six, and he
Really?
made her move to Denver. And of course, she paid for the mansion they lived in. So much for being the president of Continental Airlines. So for a little
I'm
while,
sorry, I missed that. I have the air conditioning on.
she paid for everything.
Oh.
And then her last attempt at marriage was to Ernest Borgnine. Oh, thank you for my books. Ernest Borgnine. And although she was legally married for 28 days, the marriage lasted 48 hours.
Oh, wow.
You want to hear that story?
Yeah, I do. How old was she at that point?
She married Ernie in 1964. So she was about 58.
And this was marriage number
4.
Okay.
The last marriage.
The last one.
And
see, and I have to say this because I'm glad. The reason why I went to look is, well, one, these are Geoffrey's fabulous books, so you can see. Also, link the book and the names and the faces for those of you who are part of my younger set of listeners and don't even know who Ethel Merman is. Look it up. Ask my assistant Google, or go get Geoffrey's book on Ethel Merman, because this is, we pay so much attention to the stars of today, and I really don't think we give enough credence to the pioneers and the people who really worked their patooties off compared to what they do today. But that's another story. And Ethel, I didn't remember her as being like an Elizabeth Taylor as far as looks are concerned.
no,
But she was very, there was that magnetism or
Absolutely.
charisma or something that just.
she had great legs. She was well endowed in the chest area. And she had this energy that seemed to turn men on greatly. Arnie Kovacs, listen to me. Ernest Borgnine was very much her physical type. She liked big, craggy-faced, masculine guys. Yeah, rah, 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 rah. And Ernie fit the bill. They met at a party. He'd never seen her sing. She'd never watched McHale's Navy or any of his other movies. And they had a 1-year-long courtship where they just met all over the United States having fun. And that was the basis of their relationship, having fun. But I honestly don't believe they ever really discussed what married life would be like between the two of them, because too much happened too quickly. Like, gosh, didn't you folks discuss this before the ring was put on the finger? At the wedding, Ernie's daughter hurt her arm and had to be taken to the hospital. So Ethel went to the reception with her agent in a limousine. And her agent hands her a bill. She says, "What's this for?" Well, Borgnine's people say that it's the mother of the bride who pays for the wedding. And even though Ethel was 58, both of her parents were still alive. She said, "My parents can't afford this. Who's going to pay them?" He said, "You are." Okay, that's strike number 1. They have a lovely wedding, and there's all kinds of celebrities, including Lucille Ball, in attendance, because they were good. In fact, Lucille Ball threw her wedding shower at the Desilu Studios.
Oh.
The next night, Lucille and her husband, Gary Morden, and wonderful dear friends of mine, Carol Cook and her husband, Tom Troop, went over to the Borgnines' new home together and just had, drinks and coffee and cake and that kind of stuff. And Ernie announced that the wedding cruise they were leaving on the next day to Japan had been a gift to him for doing a beer commercial in Japan in his McHale's Navy uniform. And Ethel said to herself, "Wait a minute. I spent taxable income on a reception, and you're gifting me with a free cruise that cost you nothing?" Strike 2. They get on the ship the next day. In those days, cruising on ships was a little snootier. There was first class. There are no classes anymore. You pay for the cabin you like, wherever it happens to be. But in those days, it was done by first class, second class, third class. And in first class, people did not dine the first night. First night, people were served dinner in their rooms so they could unpack and emerge the next day looking wonderful, but not tired or harried. So they're having their dinner. Merman isn't speaking to him. She's drinking. He's got a wife who's terribly unhappy about something. He's got no clue. And he's drinking. Now dinner ends and, it's time to go to bed. And they're just newly married. And one of the things Ethel liked about him was how much fun it was with him in bed. Well, Ernie couldn't get the engine going, probably because he'd had too much to drink.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm cleaning this up the best I can for our friends out there. Ethel did. See, early in the morning, I mix up stuff. Ethel did what women and some gay men do to spark an interest in their partners if things don't rise the way they'd like them to. But still nothing was happening. And Ethel drunkenly looked up at him and said, "What are you, some kind of a fag?" And Ernie slapped her across the face. Ernie being Ernie. Merman being Merman, she slapped him back. Ernie being Ernie, he bowled up his fist and got her one right across the chin.
No.
Throwing her out of bed onto her posterior. Ethel got up, went to the cabin telephone, asked for ship to shore, which is what you had to do in those days to call someone.
Right. On land.
Not on the ship.
Right.
So it cost her a lot of money, and Ethel did not like spending money. And she got her attorney, and she said, "I want out." And her attorney told her, "Ethel, you got married in California. If you leave him before 28 days, it'll be called desertion, and everything you moved into his house, he gets to keep." She got herself another cabin. They flew home separately. She lived in his house. On the 28th day, the moving van showed up, took out everything that belonged to her and also every wedding present that had been given. And she never spoke to him again. Or as she put it in her autobiography, a freight train does not look back when it's passing a hobo. Ethel never told the story I just told in public. I was told it by several people. And I took it to my dear friend, Rosemary, who was wonderful. From the Dick Van Dyke Show. She played Sally with the big bow in her hair on the Dick Van Dyke Show and 90 other years of being in show business. And Rosie read it, and she's like reading at her table, looking up at me, and reading at her table, and looking up at me. And she said, "How did you find out about this?" I said, "So it's true?" She said, "Yeah. I thought I was the only person Ethel ever told the whole story to." So she vetted the whole thing. As did Irma Cousley, who was Lucille Ball's hairdresser, who also heard the story from Ethel. So I felt comfortable publishing it because I had 4 or 5 different sources. Once you have that many sources, you can feel comfortable that what you're saying is the truth. I didn't sensationalize it. I'm sure Mr. Borgnine was heartbroken. Ethel was devastated and never married again. It was very suspicious of any man who came near her because she felt that except for the father of her children, everybody else was just there to use her name, use her money, get some kind of benefit for themselves. So she, looking back on her life, felt the father of her children was the only man who ever really loved her for her. So it's that kind of thing. End of story. I cannot hear you, young lady. If you can.
I apologize. There was a siren going by, so I muted myself. It's not easy to mute me, by the way. Was she aware of the book and that you had published that story before she passed, or?
Oh, no. The book was written much after she died. She died in 1982. The Merman book didn't come out till 2006.
Okay. All right.
But
And
I did send a copy to Ernie.
Okay.
Who did not sue me. So
okay. All right. And he's one kid. How many kids did she have? Are they in Hollywood?
she had a son and a daughter. The daughter passed away in 1967.
Yeah.
And her son, Bob, last I heard, was living in San Francisco.
Okay.
Very nice man, very good looking.
Okay, great. And it's time to take a little quick break for traffic and news. This is Take My Advice, I'm Not Using It. Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa, the morning show. And my very special guest live in studio today is Geoffrey Mark. He is the walking encyclopedia of Hollywood, as well as being an entertainer himself. These are his 3 epic books that we're talking about today. We'll be right back to talk about Ella Fitzgerald. Don't go away. We'll be back in Peace In and Peace Out.
Take back your life with Dr. Marissa Pei.
And we're back. You're tuned in to Take My Advice, I'm Not Using It. Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa, the morning show here on KCAA, AM 1050, FM 106.5, NBC News Radio, home to the Asian Oprah, and streaming everywhere, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and of course, my show Central for the last 642 consecutive weeks on the air, on camera. My YouTube TV channel, you'll get everything, including my red carpet playlist, which has interviews with Halle Berry, John Travolta, Quincy Jones, and more. And my very special guest today, who is delighting me with things that I don't know, I just love learning new things, is Geoffrey Mark. He is more than just a historian, celebrating 50 years himself as an entertainer, author, comedian, and a walking encyclopedia of things that I'm just, I love learning about. We just heard about Ethel Merman. If you missed it, go to my YouTube channel, free subscribe. You'll get an alert every morning. I come on the weekdays, as well as access to all of these for free. Ella Fitzgerald, Geoffrey, I just love her sound, her person, her pioneering for women of color in music. Take it away.
Good heavens, where to start with Ella? Like Merman, just born with this talent. What makes everyone I've written about, and I like to think myself, is we take the bows for not having the talent, but developing it and using it to make people happy. And I don't know of hardly any singer who's made more people happy than Ella Fitzgerald. And when you consider her background and how she got started, that she didn't just implode before she turned 16 is absolutely amazing. Ella's mother had Ella in the South, and the father was not involved in Ella's life. I'm not even sure Ella ever met her blood father. They moved to Yonkers, New York, where her mother took a Portuguese. I got the right language. I got the wrong country. A Portuguese lover who Ella called her stepfather. I don't believe they were ever married either. Ella's mother died in a car crash when she was about 13, 14. Her stepfather immediately molested her. So Ella ran away from home. I could talk 3 hours on just what happened to her in the next 2 years, but I'll make it as short as I can. She ran away to an aunt's house, didn't like it there, ran away again and got caught and was sent. And folks, these are not my words. This is what it was. a reformatory for colored girls.
Hmm.
Now, there were white girls there too, but completely separated, bifurcated.
Mm.
And during her stay there, Ella was systematically raped and tortured by the people who ran this place. And this was not this is a governmental thing. And Ella ran away again. This time she ran to Harlem. Because at that moment in time in Harlem, there was a renaissance of culture going on. It was a hotbed of young talent trying to get heard, trying to get seen, trying to get around the incredible bigotry that was in this country in the 1930s. And unfortunately still exists in this country today, which breaks my heart because I've experienced it. I'm Jewish and gay, and even in show business, it has not been easy because of that.
I bet. By the way, I didn't know that you were Jewish. My mom was unofficially adopted by a Russian Jewish woman, my Grandma Anna Blum. And so I have an Uncle Moishi, an Aunt Penny, and an Aunt Ethel. And I know how to run the matzah.
Well, I'll tell you what. And since you live so close to me, I'm going to make you a Jewish dinner. I'll have you over here and I'll make you homemade Jewish food.
Borscht?
Borscht is best bought in the bottle, but fixed up at home.
Okay. All right. You're on.
And the real Russian way to eat borscht is not cold, but hot with a hard-boiled egg in it and rubbed in with some onions. Yeah.
I stayed with her when I was doing graduate school. In 9 months, I gained 19 pounds. I had to move out. But anyways, go ahead. I'm sorry. I just wanted to make that little connection. But Ella
was in Harlem, had no place to live. She supported herself by being a numbers runner. Numbers runner.
Oh.
In the days before legal gambling in New York City, there was like a lottery. And people would go around, what's your number today? And take the number and the money. And then if they picked the right number, went back and paid the person off. That was called a numbers runner. And I will admit I did some of that myself when I was very young and needed to put it in my head. Yeah.
Wow.
And she moved into a house of prostitution. She was, a teenage girl. She wore her hair in pigtails. And they would have knitting hidden all over the place. And she saw from the window, she was the lookout. Anyone who looked suspicious, like it might be cops or someone who would get them in trouble, she'd give the high sign. All the girls would take out the knitting. And if somebody came in, you're under arrest for, we're teaching this poor young child how to knit. We're doing charity work here. Whatever do you mean? And they got away with it. They were aware Ella had talent. And it was the ladies, the sex workers, let's use the proper term for them, the sex workers who put her name in to be called at an amateur hour. And they went there, and the last act on the regular bill before the amateur hour was a group called the Edwards Sisters, which Ella called the dancingest sisters you ever saw in your life. Ella wanted to go out as a dancer. She wanted to call herself Snake Hips Fitzgerald. But when she saw them get a standing ovation for their incredible flash dancing, she wouldn't go. And the ladies pushed her on stage, literally. And the spotlight hit her. And I don't know who more. I don't know if Ella liked the spotlight more or if the spotlight liked Ella more. And she walked over to the band leader and he said, honey, you got to do something, sing a song. And she didn't know very many, but she knew a song called Judy by the Oh golly, another singing group, a black female singing group whose names are escaping me at the moment. And she sang it, and she was a huge hit. And he said, "Sing another." And she said, "Well, can you sing the other side of the record called Believe It, Beloved?" And she did that, and she won. And she won, and she won, and she won, and she won. And finally, someone close to the Chick Webb Orchestra company saw her. Several people said, "Chick, you got to hire this girl." He said, "All right, bring her backstage." They brought her backstage in a torn dress, unwashed, no makeup, hair not attractive. And he said, he thought it was a rib. "Are you guys kidding me?" And then they had her sing. And he went, "Oh, that's very different."
How old was she?
She was probably 16, 15, 16 at this point.
So first time with the spotlight, 14, 15, 14, 15, something like that.
15. And he said, "We're going to Yale this weekend. If the Yaleys like you, you're in." And there were a couple of people in his organization who were gay, which was unusual. Big band is not known for having lots of gay performers in it. And they're the ones who took Ella shopping for a dress and taught her how to put on makeup and how to do her hair. Took her to a hairstylist, even taught her how to properly cleanse herself as a woman, because no one had taught her this.
Oh, good Lord.
And within a year and a half, she had a hit song. And then within 3 years, she had her big song, A Tisket a Tasket. And Chick passed away. She took over the orchestra. Her records sold. She was becoming a huge success in nightclubs, and it just built and built to the point where, Ella had hundreds of albums recorded, and Grammy. First black woman to win a Grammy. First black woman to win 2 Grammys for this in the same year. It just never stopped. Health stopped her. Finally, she had diabetes, and unfortunately, they had to take both of her feet above the ankle. And even then, she wanted to go out in a wheelchair, but wiser heads prevailed. And there were love affairs, and there were things that.
Did she have children?
She adopted her sister's son because he was, I think, out of wedlock. And Ella was married for about 4 years to a wonderful, incredible jazz bass player named Ray Brown, who was also really good looking. And their marriage didn't work out, but their friendship lasted a lifetime. In fact, Ray was in charge of her very last recording session in 1989. It was released in 1990, Ella's last album. So they always remained friends. Ray Jr. is handsome like his father, and I believe he lives in Hawaii as we're speaking. Other than that, Ella had affairs. And when she became famous enough and felt she deserved to be happy, deserved to be happy, she had to own that. She admitted to herself that what she really liked visually were kind of like blondish white boys. And that's where her playtime went.
That's where her what?
Her playtime went.
I don't remember hearing any about this. So, were there like any names that I would know of those particulars?
No,
so it's
no.
like,
Most
it's
of these
like Robert
people,
De Niro reversed.
No, what she did was she kept an apartment in Europe, in the northern countries where the blonde boys live. And Ella worked like Lucille Ball, like Ethel Merman, ridiculously hard for most of her career. She was touring about 40 weeks a year, all over the world. She was huge in Japan. She was huge in Germany. She was huge in England. She was huge in Brazil. I mean, everywhere. Australia. So
did she ever talk about the impact of her abuse on her music?
She did it kind of slyly. She said I sing from my heart. I sing what I feel that night, which is why her songs were not always sung exactly the same way. She never publicly discussed any of this stuff. It's why there are two books. The first book, I followed her guidelines, her manager, Norman Grant's, what they said had to be. So a lot of what I knew, I couldn't print. After she passed away and Norman passed away, I said, this is silly. There's no accurate history here. Other people have written books about her. Of course, I like mine best. And so the second book was an attempt to really, really tell the truth. All of my books, I don't write any of them for gossip. I don't write any of them that TMZ or the National Enquirer is going to have a headline about. I tell the truth. And where there are bad things, I try to explain why. There's a reason why people behave badly or how they react to something bad happening in their lives. And likewise, there are good things that also kind of need explaining. The most questions I get through the years about Ella have nothing to do with what I just told you. Everybody wants to know about her and Marilyn Monroe. Marilyn, not unlike James Dean and their compatriots, the pretty young angry boys and girls of the 1950s, they all listened to Ella because her ballads, as Marilyn would say, it soothes my tummy. So twice Marilyn came to Ella's aid. Once, and I'll quickly just tell the story so I don't want to waste time. Once was she could not get booked into a major nightclub in Hollywood because they didn't think a black woman would pull in anybody. And Marilyn went to the owners and said, look, you book her for 10 days. I will come in every night with a party of 10 different people, the biggest stars you've ever heard of. You'll be a full house just to have people gawking at us. And she did. There are some people who say that Marilyn did not show up all 10 nights, but Marilyn Monroe had a table there all 10 nights filled with celebrities. Ella never had a problem getting booked after. The other time was in Colorado where Ella was appearing and Marilyn happened to be there. So she came out to do the press conference with, help Ella get more. Marilyn was concerned, but Ella didn't realize her own power as a woman and was pushing Ella. Look, you deserve the best arrangements. You deserve the best gowns. You deserve the best treatment because you're Ella blankety blank Fitzgerald. And it's time you realize that. And after the press conference, as it was ending, the management was showing them the back door because black folks didn't walk in the front door of this club. And Marilyn called back everybody. She said, turn your cameras on, turn your mics on. And they did because she was Marilyn Monroe.
Right.
She said, Marilyn Monroe and Ella Fitzgerald enter this nightclub through the front door, or Marilyn Monroe and Ella Fitzgerald don't enter at all.
Wow. I didn't know any of this, so I'm so happy to hear it.
And you know what? They let them in through the front door, and Ella was never stopped again.
So she almost like sponsored her or gave her the balance of the love and respect and attention and cherishing that she never got. So
well, Marilyn could, sympathize, empathize with Ella because Marilyn's background had some of the same stuff in it.
That's true.
And you need to tell you, Dr. Marissa, how difficult it is to be a female in show business, even to this day, never mind a person of color. All of us who aren't straight, white Protestants, there is some pushback against us, even in America. Ella didn't just break the doors. Ella kicked the doors down. All the wonderful female African-American performers that we enjoy and idolize couldn't have even been in the audience when Ella was working until the middle 50s.
Mhm.
And she just said, nope. So all the other ladies who walked through it because Ella kicked the door down.
That's so amazing. And we are out of time. I knew this would go fast. One thing about Lucy that we don't know, that's in the book.
The Lucy book does not talk about her personal life. It talks about only her professional life, which is why the family endorsed the book, and it's authorized by the family. That after 1957, if you remember I Love Lucy, and she wore her hair with a big bun in the back, when they cut that off, 97% of the time you saw Lucille Ball in public, she was wearing a wig.
Wow.
So she was one of those ladies who chose to make it easier on herself and wear a wig and sort of pull back a little bit, because she would not have a facelift, but they could pull her own hair back to sort of smooth the lines out. But those were all wigs. Irma Kuzli was the woman who bought them and designed them and did them, and they helped make her look as beautiful as she was.
Well, thank you so much, Geoffrey Mark, folks. He's given us an encyclopedia of new things to learn about those three incredible women. This is how I close out every show, Geoffrey. If you join me with your peace sign, it's all about balance. Peace in, peace out. World peace through, inner peace. Thank you again, Geoffrey, for coming here. And
have me back someday.
Absolutely. Now go and have the best day ever. We'll see you tomorrow with Doctors in the House here on Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get balanced with Dr. Marissa. Have the best day ever.
Take